For this final segment of Community Focus presented by the Friends of MCTV, we welcome Cheryl and Larry Levy, the organizer of the Midland Reads Poetry event. Welcome to Community Focus.
Thank you, Jen.
Nice to be here.
Larry, what are your plans for Sunday afternoon, April 7th?
Our plans for Sunday afternoon, April 7th, will be from 1:30 to 3:30 in the afternoon to kind of host the Midland Reads Poetry event for the fourth year in a row. And hope we have a good turnout at Creative 360.
Well, tell us about this event, Midland Reads Poetry.
Okay, well, it began with an offhand remark by a friend of ours that she not only did not read poetry, she did not like poetry, and that kind of stunned me. And I thought, I think there are probably a lot of people who have an interest in poetry. And a Midlander, no longer a Midlander, but at the time, Andy Christ, a poet, had organized something right here at the library, in fact, where he had invited people from all walks of life, people of different ages and employments and so on, and had people come in and read a poem and videotaped it and put it on local television. And then Andy moved away, and it seemed like such a great event that we thought we would keep it going. So we moved it over to Creative 360, and as I say, this will be the fourth year in a row.
And it's in April because April is
the International Poetry Month, and one of the largest art celebrations in the world, and this is our Midland contribution to that.
And so it's poets reading their own poetry? Is it people reading other poetry?
Yes and yes. Yeah.
That's what's so great about it is there are people that are published poets, like Jim Chrisman will be reading this year, but a lot of people are just fans of poetry. And one of my favorites was a woman who was in her 80s who went to school in the time when you had to memorize long poems. And she recited Little Orphan Annie from memory. She had her copy of the book with her just to show it. But everybody loved it because she could still remember that poem.
And she'll be coming back this year. I just heard from her, Betty Van Ochten, who has been very, very active in the Tri-Cities and beyond in poetry circles. And her comment to me on email was, although I'm not from Midland, would I be able to participate? And I said, there is always a space for Betty Van Ochten to take part, especially after last year when she just absolutely stunned the audience by reciting this very long poem from memory. So she was a treat. Well,
then people you register people for this, pre-register so that you know who's coming and how long their poetry is, or do people just show up in like a poetry slam, or what is?
I want to be sure that we do have a program, and I really want to be sure that we've got some variety. You know, I've let it be known through Creative 360's advertising that here's my email, here's my Facebook page. We do advertise there, and then people contact me and they say, "Gee, I'd like to read a poem." One of the surprises we've had, I think, is that people who have said they're interested, not particularly known as a poet, and I tell them, you know, you just pick a favorite poem is what you can do, and then they'll write back and say, could I read something I've written myself? I say, sure, why not? So, for example, Sherry Marks, a retired elementary school teacher, who was a little nervous to do this at first and was hesitant as to which poem to choose, finally said to me she had written a poem about Ernie Harwell, the great Tiger broadcaster, which she read, and it was very well done. So I think that got Sherry going. A number of people who were reluctant and hesitant to get up at first in front of people and do this found that it was rewarding, and they're some of the first to call back and say, can I do it again? Can I do it again? Sure. And some folks who, as I say, were not known as poets have consistently now said, I'd like to read one of my own. And so the program will be made up of people reading poems that are written by other people, in some cases well-known people. Langston Hughes, for example, this coming April 7th, will be read aloud by Ernie Carter, who's well-known in this area, a retired teacher also.
And we've invited, as you know, we are very active in Peanut Gallery, and our actors in Peanut Gallery love to perform anything. So over the years, we've had Peanut Gallery alumni come and perform poetry or share a favorite poem of theirs, and in one case memorized a fairly long poem, again because it gives them experience in public speaking, and they enjoy that. So the age range is very nice. It's all sizes, shapes, ages, just sharing a love of being involved with poetry.
Yeah, so this year, for example, Betty Van Octen, who I think is in her 80s, will be probably the oldest reader. And the youngest will be ninth grader Alexandria Brissett, who we met, well, Cheryl met her when she was much younger than when I met her. I met her when she was a fourth grader. She's now a ninth grader. And she and Emma Miller from Midland High will be reciting poems. And it's good to have all that range, everybody in between.
Now, you have pretty much a program set, so it's a little late for me to register for Casey at the Bat and with props, but
costumes too, of course.
Get the word out that this is going to be a poetry reading and for folks to come and enjoy.
In the past, we have had people show up not understanding that pre-registering and getting into the program was important, and we have found time for them. We found a spot for them. Things work out. Last year, two young men came over from Sassa, and they had their poems in their handheld rather than on paper or in a book. And they came in and they said, "Look, we didn't sign up, but we were wondering if there's any place for us in the program." And I said, "Let's talk at intermission. Let's see how it goes." And at intermission, I said, "Sure. You drove all the way over here from Saginaw. The least we can do is find a spot for you." And we did. And so these two high school guys didn't just read. I think they were used to maybe more the poetry slam. It was more performed and with gusto. And it was good to be able to do that. It'll be a little trickier this year because we do have 20 people signed up. And while some of the poems may be fairly short, if you showed up and said, "I'd like to do Casey at the Bat with props," we might have trouble squeezing that in. But you know what, John? I'm not going to say no. If you show up and want to do Casey at the Bat, we'll find a spot for you.
Hey, now the pressure's on me.
And I'm always on deck to read, and I usually read something written by my favorite poet, Mr. Larry Levy. But this year, there is a man, Mr. Jin, who writes in Chinese, and I'm going to read the English translation of his poem, and it's beautiful. So.
Now, do you have an admission charge, or do you accept donations? Or
this is free and open to the public. Cheryl and I make a donation to Creative 360, because we believe in Creative 360 generally, and then we just want people to just come. There will be some refreshments served during a brief intermission, and we're hoping people can just sit at the round tables that Creative 360 put out, meet some people, enjoy the readings, which they certainly do, and want to do it again, want to keep it going.
So again, a reminder of when and where.
It'll be Sunday, April 7th. It'll start promptly at 1:30, so you probably want to get there about 1 o'clock. I would say it'll end promptly at 3:30, but maybe we'll go a little long. It could happen that way. And
at Creative 360.
At Creative 360, yeah.
And where can folks get more detailed information? You have a Facebook presence, or
there is a Facebook presence, Midland Reads Poetry. My email is available through Creative 360 or on that Facebook page. It's lowercase Lawrence Levy at delta.edu.
Lawrence with a W.
Yeah, Lawrence with a W. Yeah. So that was how I heard from these people who are interested in reading. Might say a word about some of the people coming to read for the first time.
Briefly.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Well, Steve Griffin, who is known as an outdoor journalist, a very successful outdoor journalist with several books to his name, was one of the first to contact me, and I did not know he wrote poetry, but he's going to read one of his own. And Mary Gilbert, who's well known as a vocalist, a voice trainer, and now a social worker, has decided she wanted to read a poem. Larry Butcher, well known as an art professor at Delta and an artist, a very successful one, also a great fan of poetry and reader of poetry, has agreed to do this. And two people known for their political activity, Joni Brausch and Sarah Schultz, have both agreed to read. And I think everyone else is someone who was actually returning from one of the previous Midland Reads Poetries because they just want to do it again.
Well, Cheryl, Larry, thank you for joining us, telling us about Midland Reads Poetry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're glad that you joined us for the April installment of Community Focus. We've learned about some useful, informative, and educational activities that we can all look forward to in Midland in the coming weeks. The Community Focus program is just one of the many activities of the Friends of MCTV, activities that continually support and promote our local cable access television station. To join Friends of MCTV or learn more about our organization, you can like us on Facebook, email us at friendsofmctv@gmail.com, or call or visit the MCTV studio in the lower level of the Grace A. Dow Memorial Library. If your club or nonprofit organization would like to join us at this table in the months to come, you can find our application online at MCTV section of the city website, or you can visit MCTV in person to submit an application. We'd love to see you on Community Focus.